So Crowfall launches on July 6th, and you want to know if you should buy it or not. This video is going to help you figure out whether you want to buy it or not. Now, I'm not going to tell you yes, no, maybe so. I'm going to give you my opinion, and you can just judge it off there. I'm going to try to give you some things like what kind of game is Crowfall, whether it caters to PvE or PvP. Is there anything other than just PvE or PvP? And a couple other little things like the good, the bad, and, well, the ugly about the game. So, let's get started. So, I'm here on the PTS, which is going to be one of the closest patches to launch. There's not going to be a ton more that comes in after this. They're basically just gearing up and making sure they have everything as fixed as possible for the launch. Everybody's getting ready. Everybody's super excited that's playing the game, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So, having said that, things may change a little bit, but it's going to be pretty much this patch. It might be a little bit different, but I believe it's going to be pretty similar, so take that with what you will. Now, let's talk about exactly what Crowfall is. Crowfall is a throne war simulator. What that means, it's kind of convoluted when you think about it. You're like, oh, what does that mean? Well, let's explain it to you. So essentially, think of it as individual games going on in the server at one time. You have a pretty big world. We're on the starter world right now, and you kind of just see how big it is. I'm in this zone right here. There's a couple other faction zones, and these are just some zones I can go into to do different things like quest and stuff like that. Now, when you get into your actual campaign worlds, which we will touch on here in a minute, they can be significantly bigger. The one thing about Crowfall that really has a leg up on all of its competition is it has a system where it changes its worlds often, and it can change how many of these little worlds, or whatever you call them, zones. You can change how many zones are in there. They can change this up so much that it feels new essentially almost every time that you go into each world. Now, the worlds are similar to servers. Now, you can't think of it as a regular server. It's actually more closely related to channels and something like BDO, where they're still all under the same big server, but they operate differently inside those channels. It's still a little bit different because once you go into a world, your character is semi-bound to it. There are ways to unlock it, but we're not going to go over that in this video. That will be under probably the new player's guide video. But it's essentially, think of it as a specific server that you go into that you can go out of, and you can take that character into other servers with a little bit of restrictions via import export, which again we will go over in probably the new player video. So think of it as a game that has a bunch of servers that have a beginning, a middle, and an end with a conclusion. It has a season system which kind of pushes that along, and essentially every game or every campaign that you go into, somebody wins and somebody loses. There's benefits for that which we're not going to get into, but that's kind of the base how Crowfall works. Essentially, it's a bunch of servers, have different rule sets, different type of stipulations in them, and there's seasons which do a little bit different things, and there is winners and losers to each campaign. Once the winner is established, once the seasons end, the world essentially blows up, and you get to move your character to a new world. So if you're somebody that really likes a persistent world, and if you really want to see the world grow, maybe Crowfall's not for you, but stick around, see if you like what else I have to say about it, and see if it's something you still want to, check it out, or maybe watch some streamers or some content creators to see if you're going to like it. So now that we talked about that side of Crowfall, let's talk a little bit about what type of game it is. So of course it's an MMORPG that I imagine most of you know this before even clicking on this video, but it does cater towards the PvP side of games. Most games now cater towards the PvE side. We do have some PvE in the game. It's not as much as a lot of games. As you can see, we have some like wolves and stuff over here. We have some elementals. We can just go kill these wolves, and we get different things from the wolves. We can skin them, which we're going to talk about crafting and gathering here in a minute. But there are world bosses. Essentially, they don't call them exactly world bosses, but essentially there are world bosses in the game. But you still will get your best loot from crafting. But everybody is going to have to PvE. It is one way to level up. It is one way, or the main way, to get a lot of your resources, as in like gold and upgrade materials, because you don't have to just quest in this game to upgrade. You can either kill mobs, or I don't have any in here, but they give you some sack items which you can sacrifice to the gods to level up. But at its goal and at its core, this is a PvP game. Now, the looting system in this game is a little bit different. I think there was a couple games that did a looting system similar, but you don't drop your gear. You do drop what's in your inventory, and then in God's Reach, if you go to the end game zones, which I think Sky Point is for sure one, and I think this one is another, that when you die, you will drop whatever gold you have in your inventory, but you won't drop all the other stuff. Where if you go into campaigns, which are essentially, you know, more toward the end game systems in Crowfall, then you'll drop whatever is in your inventory. Your gear will not drop, but it does decay. If I get into battle, see, have I taken any hits yet? No. So I haven't taken any hits yet on my gear, but whenever you're playing around in a combat, that will degrade. So you will always be in need of gear. So there is a gear loop, but the gear loop is essentially get more gear to play more. And you'll have, when I go over crafting, we'll talk a little bit about that and how the gear progression is, because crafting is by far the best way to get gear. But at the start, we're not really going to do a whole lot of crafting. So again, to reiterate, this is mainly a PvP game. It does have some PvE, but if you're looking for the PvE experience, Crowfall's probably not your game. But if you were looking for crafting, this game is insane. Now, this is just the basic stuff that anybody can use, but if you look at even some of the stuff, it's just like wood, right? That's just really basic. It's like, bro, that's literally any game ever. You can craft bandages, juice, but whenever you start going into the specializations, and there'll have to be a separate video for how to craft stuff like that, because it's extremely complicated. There is a bunch of steps to be creating for instance, a throwing hammer. If you want to use like an advanced throwing hammer, there is a multi-step process to create each item. So if you are big into crafting and you really just love crafting the best gear possible for people, this game is the game for you, because not only is it an in-depth crafting system, it is one of the most unique crafting systems I've ever had, but crafting is absolutely king in the game. Now, you do have to do some PvE, or someone has to PvE for you to level up and to upgrade your crafting, but you could literally, if you have a good guild, you could come in and just craft stuff for them and never even, PvP once. Or PvE once. It's just something you can do, and you might need some help from some friends, but it is something you can do. So where this is a PvP game at heart, this is a very big PvE game. A crafting game, which also means this is a very big gathering game. Now, there's a lot of different stats, as in when you craft stuff, you can get different stats on your gear, and you are going to want to have stats, or gear for crafting, gear for gathering. You're gonna have to do all that kind of stuff. So where you basically will put on essentially a set of gear, there are going to be things out there that are going to boost specific things, and you're going to have different sets for different things you want to do. You're not going to necessarily want to PvP in your crafting gear, which you can. It doesn't necessarily give you such a huge disadvantage when you're doing it, depending on the stats and stuff that gives you. But it will put you at a disadvantage. So remember that when you're out gathering with your gathering gear and you're worried about getting ganked, more than likely that person ganking you is going to have on gear more tailored towards, him ganking you. So now that we've talked about what Crowfall is, what kind of game is it, as in, is it a PvP game, a PvE game? Let's kind of get into the good, the bad, and the ugly. Now, I'm going to try to keep this video pretty short, but we still want to go over some things. So let's start with the ugly. Now, the ugly is very subjective. Right now, there's not a, in my opinion, there's not a anything glaring bad about the game. But if you don't like the combat system, and if you don't like the looks of the game, and you can't get over it, then that's what I guess I would consider the ugly. And if it's something ugly, it's basically something that there's no way I can play the game. The combat system is a little slower. It's kind of a, hold on, let's put some talents in here. Let's just get, yeah, we want that. That's good enough. So it has a kind of a combo-ish system where, you know, you have your regular skills like that. You also have, like, see here, where I put down combos. Now, this class is specifically different than other classes where it's sort of, it's a kind of interesting, that's like a turret system. It's like a mobile turret system. It's weird. They basically put down like these little bombs. But it is essentially a combo system on a lot of things. As you can see here, where I have a 2-part combo to essentially do my execute. Now, some classes don't have that. You can basically do without it. There's some classes that specifically don't really use the combo system. They can just use some of the basic class abilities and, you know, build up resources to expend those resources, right? So you can do that. But if you don't like a tad slower play style, then maybe Crowfall's not for you. And I've heard a lot of people say, man, this game looks like crap. Well, I mean, that's your opinion. And if you don't like it and you can't get over the way the game looks, then, I mean, maybe it's not for you. But, I mean, I've played Albion and I've played WoW. And if you can play those games, then you can play this game. Now, I'm not comparing these to Albion or WoW, where Albion is probably its closest comparison. But they're still very vastly different games. So let's go about, you know, we talked about the ugly. Let's talk about the bad. So the bad is the game, when it doesn't have population and when PvP fights are not popping, the game does not shine. Now, if everybody starts playing the game, then we won't have that problem. That does bring up another issue where, depending on the worlds, resource spawns can be limited and mob spots can be limited. But again, there are many servers. They're not just everybody's going to be, you're not going to have 50,000 people in one server. That's just not going to happen. So where it is a bad, it's really not that bad. The only way that it actually is a bad is if there's just not enough people playing. Now, right now, there's a few hundred people on basically the starter servers, and they're essentially just playing around, and it's a lot of new players getting ready for the game. A lot of the veteran players right now are just kind of taking a break, gearing up for launches. They're doing some stuff in like their EKs, and they're essentially just resting up, ready for that instant push to, you know, first everything, right? Because, you know, Crowfall's launch and everybody's getting really excited, and they're just kind of gearing up for that. So if Crowfall has the population, the game is extremely fun. You've just got to have the PvP fights. Now, the game on the bad side, again, I guess I would put in there, is it can be grindy for smaller guilds. And that's only if you're trying to compete with the bigger guilds. Because if you're going into Drake specifically, there is a system where you have to basically build up keeps, and you need a bunch of resources, and it takes a lot of work to get your resources up. Now, if you're in a bigger guild, it's a lot easier to get those resources because you're in a bigger guild. But if you're in a smaller guild, it's a lot harder to do it, but you can still do it. Now, fending it off against the big guilds is kind of, you know, whether you want to or not, that's neither here nor there. That's a little bit harder. That's a little bit different. But it can be a little grindy for that. Now, I say grindy, but it's not nearly as grindy as anything like ESO, BDO, anything like that. This game is not nearly as grindy. This game really tries to get you in the fray early and often. They've been really trying to cater more towards the PvP by trying to force people more into PvP. Let's see. Well, I don't think there's any hot zones available in God's Reach. Let's see if there's any here in Sky Point. Yeah, actually, this is a hot zone, right? I'm pretty sure this is a hot zone. Tainted Hills. Yeah, I'm pretty sure this is a hot zone, which means you get increased drops here. So this will incentivize people to go here. So it's another reason for people to funnel to here for PvP. So they've continuously tried to force people into PvP by doing stuff like that. You have outposts, you have siege timers, and stuff like that. They do have a actual siege timer for your castles and stuff like that, your keeps. But I don't think it's going to be in at launch. It's going to be in right after launch. It's one of the first things they're going to do. So if you played the game and you don't like the siege windows, then maybe you wait till after launch. But I imagine that's not going to be a make or break for anybody. They're going to go to a system where you have, from my recall, they're going to go to a system where basically you have to spend amount of resource to attack a keep. And that way it's not just people randomly sitting there for an hour or 2 hours. Well, it can be that long. You got to get there early. But you sit there for long periods of time without any action, right? They really want you to get out there and get into the action. Okay, that's kind of the bad. Again, you can put the bad in the category of combat and looks if you so choose. Maybe it's kind of like, Parfax, you haven't really sold me. They're not like too bad of things, but they're not great. Also, if you are a solo player, this is in the bad category. This game may not be for you. Now, you can come try it out and have a little fun. You can go into the faction versus faction versus faction, which will allow you to do, you know, a lot more group stuff versus the guild stuff. But the game really does cater towards group play. Let's be honest, if you're playing an MMO solo, I don't know what to tell you, because MMOs are essentially a community of people that just like to do the same crap, right? So it is what it is, but it's not terribly solo friendly. They did put in a new player experience, which we're going to touch on here in a second, for the good thing, that really helps you learn the game. But I guess another thing that can be bad is the game is complex and it takes some time to learn. The game looks pretty simple on its core, right? You're like, okay, the combat system is not incredibly complicated. I don't have to learn 65,000 different combos, but there's a lot of information in this game, and there's a lot of information that is really hard to find, like from crafting recipes, how to properly level up your crafters, what gear you need for your crafters, what breakpoints are for your crafters. When it comes to PvP, what gear do you want? The PvP is a lot simpler when it comes to that kind of thing, but you go like, what kind of gear sets do I want to run? What stats do I specifically need on there? What, you know, in what vessel? What's my best stat on my vessel? A bunch of different things. And I know I haven't talked about the vessel yet, but the vessel essentially is your character. You are a crow at base. That's why it's called Crowfall. Even though you're seeing me here, I'm actually on a Frostweaver. I am actually a crow just inhabiting the body of a high elf Frostweaver. And the crow, you inhabit the vessels. And can I see the vessel? I don't know if I can see the vessel on this person. Yeah, I don't know if you actually can see the vessel, but the vessel is essentially your character. So every vessel you have is essentially a new character. And you can level them up to 30 at the base one, which you'll be able to complete at the very beginning of the game. And then necromancers will be able to craft you better bodies, which will give you more stats, and will be able to level up and equip better items. There are now level requirements for your items in the game. So like if I was to go over here, and these don't drop weapons or anything like that, but if I was to kill a guy over here and they drop a piece of gear, it will have a level requirement on it. Actually, you can see here, this should have, as you see here, if you look right in the middle of the screen there on the tunic, you'll see level requirement is 20. So there will be gear that is a requirement over level 30, which is your base, but all you need to get is a necromancer to craft you a body and then level it up. It does get significantly harder to level your character up once you hit 30. 30 gets pretty quick. You can do it in a couple hours by doing the new player experience. And then like 30 to 31, you're basically gonna be grinding mobs or doing whatever you want to do in the world. And it takes significantly more time to level up every time you want to level up. But it's pretty good. So now let's talk about the good. We've talked about the bad, the ugly. Now let's talk about the good. So the good for Crowfall is, first off, as of right now, the community is actually really good. Now, I know that's going to change here with a lot of new people coming in, but the community has been really good. I know everybody's like, oh, everybody always wants to complain about their community, but if you ask something in chat, people, even with the little amount of population it's been at times, if someone's put any questions in chat, people have responded. The developers are essentially in the community. They listen to so many things. One of the biggest things we've been complaining about forever is on our character in the top left, there's now missing a chicken ticker. At one point in the game, it was going towards more survival-y, and there was essentially a hunger mechanic that you had to eat. But we were like, look, I like food buffs, but I don't want to have to eat needlessly for no reason. And they're like, you know what? I think you're right. I mean, it took them a few years, okay? But they're like, you know what? That's something you want us to do? I tell you what, we're going to do it. So the developers are extremely talkative, at least for developers. I mean, they're not going to talk your ear off, but they do a monthly Q&A. They answer questions. They take our feedback. The game is, one thing people don't know is the game has taken longer to come out because of how much feedback we've given them. We have changed as a player base so much of this game. It's essentially close to what the player base wanted it to be. Now, there are people that didn't want it to be this, I'm sure everybody would change something about it, but have you ever played a game where you haven't wanted to change something? I mean, I'm sure WoW players have been playing since launch would like to change something. ESO players, Final Fantasy players, I'm sure they want to change something, about it. And what's perfect, right? No game out there is. But they've at least, for the most part, been open. The one thing I point back to always was a quote from, I believe it was J-Todd, and they were talking about dueling. And they're like, well, we want to put dueling in the game. And J-Todd's like, look, I honestly think for the amount of development time it's going to take us to put in dueling, that it's not going to be, the juice isn't going to be worth the squeeze. It's not going to be worth for us. You guys think you want dueling, right? It's something you think you want us to put in the game. But when we put it in, it's not going to be worth the development time it took us to actually put dueling. It'd be better if we worked on something else, something different that you wanted us to put in versus dueling. Now, there is essentially a way to duel through your Eternal Kingdoms, which is the last world that I haven't really talked about. Picture the Eternal Kingdoms as a world that is all yours. You can buy and build and make your world huge. It can make it astronomical huge. It is bigger than any other housing system I've ever had, and it is more customizable, or has more customizable features than any other housing system I have ever seen. You can make it to where it's a trading place where people come to trade. You can make it to where it's a dueling arena. You can make it to where you have a bunch of trees and you just want to cut down basic wood for some reason, right? You can do so many things with it, and the sky's the limit for it. The more and more the game gets developed, the more and more things you're going to be able to put in there. And I think that Eternal Kingdoms are going to be where this game shines in 15, I shouldn't say 15 years. We'll say 5 years, right? Because the world is always going to be the world. They're going to add a bunch of new features. They're going to add a bunch of new things. But Eternal Kingdoms is so different than any other thing in any other MMO. I think it has the ability to just be something that people absolutely love. If you've ever played ESO, people love to show off their houses. Now picture a housing system where you get to create the house itself, right? You get to, not only do you have this base house that you can put stuff in, you can make the world around it. You can shape the world around it. Now, it doesn't have quite as many things to put in there as ESO. Mind you, remember how long ESO took to even come out with their housing system? And they add stuff into it all the time, which Crowfall will as well. But it's going to be a system where you can even build the world around it. Now, they have base buildings and stuff like that, and it's not, like I said, it's not nearly as customizable, but they're getting to the point where it's going to be a system that can help just carry the game by itself, because it's so unique and so cool that it's really different than any other MMO that I've ever played. Now, also, we've talked about the community. We've talked about Eternal Kingdoms. There's not a lot of PvP games out there. right now, what game really caters to PvPers? This game does. They're always striving to bring more people together to fight. They're always striving to, you know, promote fights. And they want us out there risking our loot for a reward. So maybe if you're a PvEer, you can see that as a bad. I see that as a good, because you want to be out here just PvPing, helping your guild. Again, on the community thing, it's a really big guild game. Some of my favorite games I've ever played are because of the guilds that I was in. And this game really wants you to work well together as a guild. Now, the last and final thing, this video is way too long already, is the game is just fun. When there's a player population, like I said in kind of the bad, the game is just fun to play. Like, I have hundreds of days in this game. Now, a lot of veterans are completely burnt out. There's a lot of veterans that probably aren't going to come back for launch, but that's because they have 10,000 hours in the game, or, you know, 100 days of gameplay time, or even 500 hours played. Like, they have so many hours played in it already. Some of them are burnt out, and that's just going to happen, right? But the game has some really cool moments in it where you're just like, oh, and just things click, because the game is not very self-explanatory. Now, they did put in a brand new player experience, and they've been working on this for a while now. And the new player experience is pretty freaking awesome. I'm going to completely go through the new one. I've seen bits and pieces of it, but they really go in depth at explaining how the game works and how different features works. And it's extremely important that if you're a new player, to not just skip through it, not just to want a power level, because it's going to give you so much useful information that you don't want to just skip over it. It's really, really good. And it probably is one of the better new player experiences that I've actually been a part of, if you actually go back and watch it. So those are my thoughts. Obviously, I'm going to say yes, I would play it. Now, I'm not sponsored or anything by Crowfall. I'm not even a partner with them. To be fair, I did apply. So J-Todd, if you're watching, you know, come on. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm not kidding. I did apply, but I just applied. I do meet the requirements for my YouTube channel. But I'm not sponsored by them at all. I just think they're a good set of developers with a good game. And if the player population can sustain it, which I believe it will, because we are launching now, and I imagine there will be a lot more players, the game is just a lot of fun. It can be very, you know, not new player friendly at times. They've made some strides in that direction, made some huge strides. Actually, they've made the map a lot better. We can see here, you can go to like Sky Point, and you can see, hold on, Sky Point's the same. Let's go here. They have things like, now it shows you where the pack pigs are. It just has a lot more things in the map that we really need. As you see up here at the top left, my FPS counter, I can F10 now, and I can remove it, which I've been wanting to do in the game. And they've just been adding things over and over again. There are going to be more things to come when the game comes down. The game, I believe the base version is $40, and which is not very expensive for a game. Once you get $40, you're going to get a bunch of rewards. Now, we can talk a little bit about the VIP. I'm not going to go over the VIP in this video, but the VIP is essentially, there's nothing in it close to pay to win. The game is not pay to win at all. There's not even close to pay to win in this game. Like, there's no even really, I guess the only pay to convenience is in the VIP. You can respec for free versus buying a tome to respec, right? So, and that's not even cool. Like, I'm a person that's very stingent on pay to win. Like, I even think a lot of pay to convenience is pay to win, and Crowfall doesn't have any of it, right? So there's no pay to win. The game is fun. If you don't like some of the bad things I said now, you can see performance. I haven't been able to test performance in this new patch. Performance has been getting a lot better. It is, if you've watched videos from even 6 months ago, the performance is improving. They had developers in here. They had the Unity came in and are working with them on how to increase their performance, and they're continuously, with every patch coming out, putting in new performance. They've added new biomes, so it's not just the forest here. They actually added a swamp. They've added water. And they're going to continuously add things as they go. They have a timetable, they have a timeline that they've posted and they've shared many of times that kind of updates us on exactly what they're going to do. And sorry, I'm kind of jumping around here. They have a big system. I didn't even touch on this. This is actually a great thing. This is my favorite thing in the game, and I can't believe I didn't touch on. And this will be the last thing, and I promise we'll get out of here. This 35-minute video is this going to end up being. But the skill system and the discipline system, which these are disciplines right here, are really cool and really good and fun to play around with. You can customize your build. You can only take like one of these three, right? So if you take one of these, it opens up a set of disciplines. In those disciplines, you can only pick from a certain amount. So you really got to plan your build. They have this thing down here called Crowpedia that allows you to see exactly which thing you want to go for. Like Dryad, if you're a healer, you can go and, you know, it gives you some healing, right? It's like, oh man, that disc looks insane. I want to play with that discipline. It's like, okay, let's go Dryad. So I can get it as an Elkin. And that's it. So then you can go here, class. Where is it? So you can't get it as a class. Class does not get it because you don't see it here. Promotion. Let's just go to domain. So you look, oh, domain. All right, let's go for Dryad. Dryad. Okay, here we go. So Dryad. Oh, nature. We got that there. And boom. So I have to get something with the nature tree. You look here, and boom. Nature tree. Now I have all these. I clicked on this button here, and it put all of them to the top. And like, okay, now I can go here. Look, boom, 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 boom. Now it's got to find something with a nature tree. So go over here and be like, oh, nature. Boom. All right, so I can be an arbiter, an archdruid, an earthkeeper, ice caller, secutor, warden. Yeah, and those are the promotions that I can use. Promotions are essentially classes inside your class. So typically you have like your archer, and it has, as an archer, you can be 3 different classes. You can be the warden, the brigand, or the ranger. That's essentially what promotion means, as you can see here. So this is the frost weaver. We can be the frost guard, ice caller, or the archmage, and each one of them are a little bit different. So there's a lot of customization here. There's always going to be a meta. People are going to run a specific set of runes or I'm sorry, not runes, but disciplines. But there's a lot of customization, and they're going to continuously work on it, bring us more disciplines, bring us, they're okay with even moving around stuff in the domains. So it's really cool. Also, if you played or paid attention to Crowfall, they got rid of their passive learning system. So there's none of that anymore. They just basically added all that stuff into the base game. So when you get stuff for crafting, you know, you'll get it through crafting methods, and you'll get the fighting ones through fighting methods. So essentially, they took out the passive system and just added it all into the base game. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Obviously, I would say if you have $40 to spend and you're looking forward to a PvP MMO, I would give Crowfall a try. We'll see. I'm going to be playing it. You can see me at twitch.tv/Parfaxgaming. You can see me here on my YouTube channel. I will be posting more YouTube videos. You can also catch me up on Twitter. Same thing, Parfaxgaming on Twitter. And, you know, if you respond to any of my YouTube videos or you come into my chat, I try to answer just about everything. If you're like a super troll, I may give you like a troll response back, or just kind of give you a, you know, no response or a thumbs up or something, you know, weird like that. But all right, guys, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope this helped you out at all. If it didn't, let me know. If you want to know anything specific, just comment down below. I will try to answer it as quickly as possible. I'm actually pretty quick on answering my YouTube comments. I try to look at it quite a few times a day just to make sure that I can get people the answers they need, or just getting, you know, effective feedback. Thanks for watching. I hope to see you in Crowfall on the 6th of July, and I'll talk to you soon.